Today's story has this as a title. She cursed the future mother-in-law and then went to speak to Padre Pio. Well, what do you think happened next? Welcome all friends of Following Padre Pio, our YouTube channel, in which we promote the absolutely incredible life of Padre Pio. And if you are new to our YouTube channel, Following Padre Pio, then please do like and share our videos, and thereby you'll automatically be included in this Friday's Mass Prayer Intentions. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, but really if you enroll, then you'll be included in future monthly Mass Prayer Intentions. And by doing that, you will be actively participating and helping in our Padre Pio apostolate. So in 1956, this lady went to San Giovanni, but she was a little bit skeptical of Padre Pio, especially when she saw some lady holding their rosaries to the confessional where Padre Pio was to absorb blessings or something out of the confessional. And she thought that this is all superstition. But she still had the presence of mind to pray, Lord, if this friar is truly holy, then do give me a sign. But the queues to confession were long, and so she had to come back another day. During the night, she awoke at 2:30 a.m. and she noticed an intense perfume, a sense of fragrance of roses in the air. And she wondered to herself, where on earth does this come from? She certainly didn't have a bottle of perfume on the bedside table next to her. In fact, there she had a cigarette butt stompy she had stomped out earlier, which certainly wouldn't account for the perfume. In the morning, when she got up, she checked around this apartment to see what could have been the cause of this fragrance of perfumes. And she looked for roses or a vase of roses or anything. Maybe outside the window there were some plants, but there was nothing. And then she went to the church to confess to Padre Pio. Well, she arrived at the confessional, and the first sin she confessed was this. She said, I cursed the mother of my ex-loved one because she was the cause of the ruin of our possible marriage. How did this go down with Padre Pio? Well, he exclaimed, and who are you to judge? He said, you will only come back here when you are sorry. And with that, he slammed the little door of the confessional shut, and he turned to hear the confession on the other side. Well, this lady now had a little crisis as she returned to the hotel exclaiming, what sort of saint is this? With not even a word of relief for me who hurts so much. I'd hoped for comfort and justice. And she remained in the state, just eating away at her insides. And the more time that passed, the more her anger grew. A while later on, several days later, she's now back at her other house, and she smelt a wave of perfume, but this time of violet flowers. She did not mention it to any of her friends who were there, but she did ask them if they smelt anything. And they all said no, they had not smelt anything. So as we know, Padre Pio had what is called the odor of sanctity, which is another charism, a fragrance of perfume that would sometimes pervade the air, and it will show that Padre Pio is helping there. And so despite her hardness, this showed that Padre Pio was in fact by her side. And after that, she gradually calmed down. To her amazement, sometime later, she realized that all this hatred that she had harbored in her heart had in fact disappeared, had completely dissipated. So now, about a month later, she returned again to San Giovanni Rotondo, and she went to Padre Pio's confessional, and this time she was granted absolution. So here's another little story about the right sort of preparation that we need to make for confession. So instead, we will be well disposed to receive the graces granted during confession. And one day, Padre Pio asked a penitent, do you know how to do a proper examination of conscience? Well, the other person did not have a ready answer, so he did not answer. And then Padre Pio continued, well, let's see. If someone wrongs you, how do you behave? course. He said, well, Father, I will first respond, and then after that I'll think about it and repent, and then I'll ask to be forgiven. Padre Pio's answer, you're actually wrong there. You must forgive while you receive the wrong. Well, that sounds pretty difficult. And he said, forgiveness after the reaction actually comes too late. And here's another example to illustrate Padre Pio's willingness to forgive. So he was living this message. And a certain lady, Cleonice Morcoldi, recalls that way back in the 1920s, in a time when Padre Pio's name was being slandered, he was being defamed by all sorts of people around him within the church. A certain specialist from San Giovanni Rotondo had just returned from Rome, where he had in fact been accusing Padre Pio. And he went to Padre Pio's monastery. Well, there was a brother there who was aware of what had been going on, and he tried to prevent this particular person from going to Padre Pio's confessional. Obviously, he was wanting to prevent an incident. But the saint knew what was going on and told this brother to let the doctor pass. Well, as he came nearer, Padre Pio called to him by name and exclaimed, "Hey, how long you've been away? Come here and give me a hug." And Padre Pio hugged him there in front of everyone. He bore no ill will to this person. Wow, what an example, how difficult that must have been. Padre Pio had absolutely no antipathy towards this person. And this was because Padre Pio had an instinctive aversion to, and he gave no ground to, the realm of hatred. And here's some advice that Padre Pio gave to another lady. One day a lady said to him in the confessional, "Father, it is difficult for me to welcome the unpleasant." Well, Padre Pio promptly replied, "The heathen find that too." So it's a difficult calling that we have. Perhaps if we are driving in the traffic and someone cuts us off, or someone takes forever at the licensing department in the queue there, or some other injustice, maybe even associated with COVID, then these could be opportunities to practice this heroic forgiveness. Please do continue listening. Click through to Padre Pio's short blessing video which follows.